it'd be like going an entire day wearing gloves. It's been a brutal winter. We're from Louisville. It's been the coldest in my lifetime, and I've worn these gloves almost every day. I try to tie a shoe, button clothes, use a cell phone. I can't. I get frustrated, but I keep trying. Well, stroke survivors are going to try to do these same things. But the difference between stroke survivors and us, they can't just take their gloves off. I'm Nick Phelps, introducing TheraBracelet, the first device that can aid these individuals for an entire day, dramatically reducing the need for assisted living. What the hearing aid is to the ear, what glasses are to the eye, TheraBracelet is to the hand. Through silent vibrations, it brings back sensitivity, touch, gripping skills, fine motor skills to stroke survivors and the elderly. Let's take a look at how this works. Thanks, Nick.
TheraBracelet is a completely non-invasive wristband device that delivers sub-threshold vibrations. You can't feel these vibrations, but they activate your somatosensory cortex in your brain, which causes your body to instantaneously be able to increase your ability to sense touch and improve your fine motor skills in your hands. For example, if you have a stroke or as you age, your sensitivity threshold for touch increases. TheraBracelet amplifies touch sensation above this threshold, so that when you wear our device, you can once again sense touch on your hands. What you're looking at right now is TheraBracelet version 2. I'd like to take a look at it. As you can see, it has an external battery supply, some wires, and an audio source. And we've talked with individuals in physical therapy and stroke survivors, and we realize it's just not practical for them to wear this, even though it's a fully functioning prototype. So our chief engineer, Alex Curry, who could not be here with us today, just recently finished the design specifications for version 3 of TheraBracelet, which, as you can see, is an all-in-one device very similar to what a Nike Fuel or a Fitbit is. We expect to have this by November of this year. To talk about the benefits of this device, it's the first all-day wearable device to treat neuropathy. It's cost-effective for our patients. It offers immediate results, as in immediate improvement in sensitivity in the hands. Best of all, from an FDA standpoint, it's completely non-invasive. TheraBracelet is currently protected by a provisional utility patent that was filed by the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. They are in the process of converting this patent right now. We have an exclusive license to option this we have an exclusive option to license this technology. We plan to execute on this and convert this license in August of this year. We have a great relationship with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. They are very excited to work with us. We've only had TheraBracelet for less than a year, but we've made some major achievements in that timeline. We want to talk about those here in a minute. We've already begun discussing the general terms for what we can expect to see in this option agreement. We also plan to take our patent portfolio and extend it greater than just at the hand and the wrist area, as we believe the TheraBracelet technology can help individuals who are suffering from neuropathies in the feet, maybe numbness, tingling, loss of sensation. Again, we're going to use Alex Curry, who's our chief engineer, who happens to be a registered patent agent, to help us file these utility patents and help keep the cost down. TheraBracelet. Yes, sir.
Just a question in regard to the ownership of the IP. I understand that the University of Wisconsin-Madison, owns the first patent here.
Yes.
The future intellectual property, is that still the university, or is it joint?
That's something that would be a joint ownership because of how we've advanced the designs for TheraBracelet version 3, as well as taking it to a completely different area on the body. TheraBracelet was invented by our very own Chief Scientific Officer, Leah Enders, at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. In fact, it's the cornerstone of her PhD work there. Nearly 2 years of research has gone into it, and $400,000 has been invested in research funds. We're happy to say that her results were recently published to a national peer-reviewed journal. At this point, I want to turn it over to Leah Enders, our Chief Scientific Officer and the co-inventor of TheraBracelet, to tell us more about these results. Leah.
Thank you, Matthew. Dr. So and I invented TheraBracelet at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee for stroke survivors who are experiencing loss of sensation and a loss of fine motor skills in their hands. We recognize that these patients are often left with limited treatment options and wanted to develop a device that would help them regain function without impeding their natural range of motion of their hands. We have tested the technology behind TheraBracelet on 62 individuals, and we recently performed a study that looked at how TheraBracelet improves the fine motor skills of chronic stroke survivors. The results of these tests were very positive. The first test was a maximum pinch grip test, where we asked patients to grip two metal plates together as hard as they can. And we found with the TheraBracelet turned on, our chronic stroke survivors were able to improve their maximum pinch grip by 7%. Second test was a 9-hole peg test, where we asked patients to pick up, place, and remove 9 pegs from 9 holes as fast as they can. And we found that with the TheraBracelet turned on, they were able to improve their time to complete this task by 14%. Now, 7% and 14% might not seem like much to you, but I hope you understand that the chronic stroke survivors in my lab would kill to see these kinds of improvements.
Can you tell me that those 62 patients, did you find that the sample was it statistically significant?
The chronic stroke survivors that actually performed the 7% and 14%, there were actually only 13 of them, and that was statistically significant.
At what level?
I believe, I'm not entirely sure, I know it was less than 0.05 for both.
So basically, all 13 had a 7%, or was there some variation in?
That was the average percent increase, and it was significant, but I know that it varied across, but I believe most of them, or all of them, improved.
What was the range?
The range, I'm not entirely sure. The standard deviation was about 1 to 3 newtons, so the standard error, sorry. I'll turn it back over to Matt, actually talk more about what these means.
Can I also ask you, did you do any biomarker assays or anything like that to see anything that changed?
So we've done one EEG study, or an EEG study on one healthy young individual, which is interesting. And we found that with the TheraBracelet on, it actually improved or activated the somatosensory cortex more with the TheraBracelet on. And that is the one, so now we're going to be moving into our stroke survivor studies coming up, actually in the next month. And that was just interesting. We did see a healthy or improvement in our healthy young subject that we even did. So that's the one, that would be an equivalent of a assay or biomarker.
And that's the very interesting part about TheraBracelet is that when you put it on someone's wrist and you turn it on, you see immediate activation in the brain and the somatosensory cortex. So that lets us know the device is working immediately. And as Leah mentioned, these results, they may not seem much to you and me because we're healthy individuals. We can button our shirts, we can do things, we can live independently. These individuals, these stroke survivors, they can't, and this is amazing for them. The 2 tests that we did, they're industry standards in physical therapy. So improvements on the pinch grip, they correlate directly with improvements to being able to open a heavy door, be able to take a pot off the stove, be able to cook for yourself. Improvements on the 9-hole peg test, these are your fine motor skills. We're talking about being able to take your pills in the morning time, being able to put on makeup, being able to button your shirt, button your clothes, take care of yourself. What's really, really important, very promising about these results is that they represent a baseline. The 7 and 14 is a baseline. We tested chronic stroke survivors. This is a person who has been tested 6 months after they've had a stroke, after they've gone through physical therapy, after they've gone through rehabilitation, and they've gotten as good as they're going to get. They've gotten as much as they can improve in that time point. We got an additional 7 or 14% on average from them. We want to put this on the hands of individuals on day 1 after they've had a stroke. Because we believe that when you pair this with physical therapy, you're going to get increased results and see a dramatic improvement in that. Taking a look at the size of the market, there are 5.6 million individuals currently suffering from stroke in the United States. Unfortunately, every 40 seconds a new stroke occurs, and it's going to affect 1 in 6 people, meaning it's likely affected somebody that you know, it's affected somebody that I know. It's the #1 leading cause of disability, and it costs us annually $36 billion with a B dollars. But this segment does pale in comparison to the larger segment, which is the 37 million Americans over the age of 65 who have lost some level of sensation in their hands. Now this segment is going to double over the next 25 years. I'd like to talk to you about some major milestones that we plan to hit. Yes, sir.
So you're saying everyone over age 65 has some loss?
Absolutely.
So they're all part of your target market, even what they're
Right.
functioning fine right now.
And we'll talk about that more in a few slides, but we also believe that TheraBracelet can be marketed as a sports enhancement device for anyone who's past the age of peak physical performance. So as long as you are, really if you are over the age of 40, 45, this is something that can start to help you. The level of your sensation is going to vary as it decreases, but everyone's going to experience decreased sensation at that point.
Could it help LeBron James?
Absolutely. There's one gentleman who's a potential investor in Louisville, and he does a lot of rehab in a clinic with National Football League players, and he believes there's a huge opportunity for receivers, and he's more excited, I think, about that opportunity because of his work in his industry. He thinks anything, every athlete tries to get an edge, so that was validation for us, and a gentleman who works very closely with professional athletes believes that receivers in the NFL would love something like this.
Just one more question. So is correlation equal to causation here? I mean, is there other things that have similar results? A cup of coffee?
Right, so we talked with several individuals, and we're going to talk about these key relationships later on, who whenever we told them, hey, physical therapists, we're getting 7 to 14%, they were very excited. They were really amazed by these results. So they're saying if you're getting those without pairing it with physical therapy, that's very good, because if you start pairing it with physical therapy, which does require FDA approval or an IRB board, we can't put it on the hands legally or ethically. We cannot put TheraBracelet into a physical therapy environment right now. But as soon as we have FDA approval, we can do that so that we can see that functional improvement as tested by a functional independence measure. And
So again, I'll ask a question because I'm interested in understanding the mechanisms. And right now it sounds like, that it's mechanical, that it's a vibration.
Yes.
That it's, that it's stimulating, this change. But does that translate into some type of chemical, reaction? Actually, within the brain, that is actually then stimulating, the change in the
So what we believe, we can say, what we believe is occurring, and what past studies with this kind of phenomenon, which is called stochastic resonance, actually, it's the phenomenon behind this theory behind it. It basically increases the sensation at the wrist by increasing the sensory signals so that they go past the sensory threshold, activating the mechanoreceptors, which are then detected by the brain, and then the brain says, hey, there's something really going on here that we kind of have to put more energy or more, activation towards. So increase the activation of the sensory motor cortex for the whole area. And that's really what's going on. The hope is, and the belief is right now, I think, is that it's going to cause neuroregeneration, especially if we start at day 1 post-stroke. It can only really excite that or promote neuroregeneration more, which really happens a lot in the first 1 to 3 month period after stroke. So there is, I think, some kind of chemical or there's some kind of electrical actually phenomenon going on in the brain.
So ultimately, that being used to identify the new targets for growth therapy?
absolutely, absolutely. So taking a look at the major milestones, 2 weeks ago, we filed our FDA 510(k) Class 1 application. Very exciting news for us. We expect to hear back from the FDA any moment. We're going to go in depth on this in just a moment. In the next few months, we're going to begin engineering specifications for version 3 of TheraBracelet. We expect to have that completed by November of 2014, at which time we'll ramp up 500 to 1,000 units for some of that final testing for safety purposes, getting it in the hands of physical therapists and doing some additional testing. In the middle of next year, we plan to ramp up VP of Sales, VP of Marketing, so that we can start our sales initiatives. At the same time, we'll also begin doing some Medicare work. So with respect to the FDA, we realize that the FDA is a major stumbling block for most medical device companies. I'm going to say that we believe in TheraBracelet so much that we have decided to invest our own money in order to complete the FDA 510(k) application. We filed this on March 21st of this year. We expect to hear back at any point. In order to do this, we leveraged, yes sir?
Is the data that's in the application, from the version 2 and those 60-some patients?
Yes, that's included in here, for sure. We used Dr. David McClure, who's a seasoned regulatory consultant. He helped to identify our device as a Class 1 510(k) medical device. This was fantastic news for TheraBracelet and our investors, as it represents the most straightforward pathway to achieving regulatory approval. He also helped us identify our predicate device, which was the Ames therapy device. Because we have a predicate device, we will not be going through lengthy clinical trials. This is not a cancer drug. This is not an invasive therapeutic. We expect to hear back within 3 to 6 months. This is the average for a 510(k) application. Our chief engineer, who we mentioned before, Alex Curry, has already pushed a medical device through the FDA. He and I spent the last several months writing up this documentation. And because we did it in-house, we were able to bootstrap it for only $15,000. We realize FDA is a risk, so if we don't hear back within 3 to 6 months, that's fine. We'll go ahead and move forward on the V3 engineering and do those 2 tasks in tandem so we can be prepared for manufacturing. We've already lined up a manufacturing partner, Key Electronics. They are 10 minutes away from us in Louisville, Kentucky. They can produce TheraBracelet from raw materials all the way through finished goods and shipping out to our customers. Most importantly, they're FDA QSR compliant, so they can produce a quality medical device that meets the regulation standards. We've already negotiated our terms with them. We've already figured out the PCBA and assembly costs for the device. And they can scale with us from 500 to 1,000 units to 10,000 units, which is where our current pricing is right now, all the way up to 100,000 units. Finally, with respect to Medicare, we've engaged Dr. Marcia Nussgaard of Nussgaard Consulting to help us navigate the Medicare reimbursement pathway. This is about a 9-month process. The key to winning with Medicare is building a business case for lowering the overall health costs, and we believe TheraBracelet can do just that. For example, since the 1980s, the number of individuals over the age of 65 has doubled, and this will reach 2 billion individuals worldwide by 2050. TheraBracelet offers independence. It allows these individuals to stay in their homes longer. They don't want to go to nursing homes. They don't want to go to assisted living. And if they're in assisted living or nursing homes, they want to come home. TheraBracelet can enable this by giving them independence. This lowers the overall healthcare costs. Now, we realize that Medicare is a risk, and we're talking about reimbursement directly to the patient. We have built our entire financial model on not getting Medicare reimbursement to the patient, and the patient paying for TheraBracelet out of pocket. We realize that if they can't do this, that's okay. We've already set up a payment plan that will allow them to do small monthly payments over the course of several years if necessary. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Casey Newts, our COO, who's going to talk to us about how we plan to enter the market. Casey?
Thanks, Matthew. So in 2015, we're going to be hiring a VP of Sales and a VP of Marketing so that we can ramp up for our 2016 launch. Our initial hiring is going to be focused in the southeastern region of the U.S., otherwise known as the stroke belt, due to the disproportionate number of strokes that occur in this area. Now in 2016, we're going to be entering the market in our hometown of Kentucky's own backyard by first targeting stroke victims, particularly those within the stroke belt. Now distribution to these patients is going to be through hospital rehab clinics, general rehabilitation facilities, and physical therapy practices. We are using the same sales model as many other large medical device companies, including Zynex Medical and Bioness, who are already in the stroke arena. Nick is going to talk to us a little bit more about what this means, but what's important right now is just like these companies, distribution through these healthcare providers is going to occur by them carrying our product on consignment, but the actual TheraBracelet device is going to be sold directly to patients. Now, treatment providers will be incentivized to carry this device on consignment because they have the ability to generate revenues by billing pre-existing Medicare CPT codes. Okay.
How many sales reps do your competitors have?
It ranges per competitor. I know that the myoma, which we'll talk about in a little while, only has, it's less than 10. I believe that Bioness has it's 10 to 20, correct? Yeah.
They're regional based.
Yeah, they're all regional based, and a lot of them are focused in the stroke belt as well right now. Sure.
Is there a patient learning curve to using the bracelet, or you just put it on and immediately you know how to use it and it works?
It has to be individually calibrated to each person, so my sensitivity threshold for touch is different than yours. And since you can't actually feel these vibrations, because the way that stochastic resonance works means that you shouldn't be able to feel them for this to be able to work, or else your body will get used to it and your muscle will get fatigued. So once you've purchased TheraBracelet, your doctor is going to individually calibrate it to your level. That's how they are able to bill under existing Medicare CPT codes. It's the same codes that you bill for TENS unit.
How do you train the doctors?
The doctors, it's a very simple training. The sales individuals will be able to train them in about 10 minutes.
And there's also the opportunity, as we've been coached, is that they could do a simple online webinar, which would be approved probably 15 minutes, either or.
Right.
And just one more point to that, the TheraBracelet device through the electrical engineering and mechanical engineering that we're doing will walk the individual through it, so the device will assist in that process of calibration.
Yes.
So if your two-tiered distribution system, wholesale and retail, if you will, I don't see in the financials a breakout of your expected mix between wholesale and retail, different margin of both. What are you projecting on that?
In 2016 and 2017, we expect to go 100% through the healthcare providers. It's not until 2018 that we plan to open up into pharmacies. At that point, we believe that we'll have a base behind us of healthcare providers to be able to prescribe this. So we don't actually have to win shelf space in pharmacies. A patient will take their prescription into Walgreens or CVS, Rite Aid. It doesn't matter if they don't have it on the shelf. They will order it. It'll come in a week later from us.
And in that regard, you're thinking the pharmacist will do the individual calibration.
Right.
Why do they do that?
So this would actually incentivize pharmacies to carry it as well, because in places like Walgreens Take Care Clinic, you would be able to have your nurse practitioner do the calibration on site, so they'll be able to generate additional revenues from this as well.
What's the impact to the patient if it's not calibrated correctly?
It's not going to hurt them, but they need to have the healthcare provider do it, because if it doesn't, if it's not correctly calibrated, it's not going to work. Most importantly, if you feel it, it's not going to work. Now, if it was calibrated a little bit too low, it will still have some impact, but we want to get it at the right spot to have the maximum efficacy. So also encouraging patients to be able to utilize this device, we believe is going to help substantiate a case for continued Medicare reimbursement for actual patients going to physical therapy by being able to provide measurable results while they're there. Now, we plan to reach these distribution channels by using our inside sales representatives to make daily high-volume phone calls to set up meetings with healthcare providers for our outside field reps. Once these field reps have established these healthcare providers as distribution channels, they'll be giving away promotional TheraBracelet devices to be used on patients before the patients decide to purchase the device so they can experience it in physical therapy. Now, yeah.
One other question on calibration. Is it a one-time calibration, or do you have to recalibrate?
So it'll be because the calibration goes just below your sensitivity threshold, it will start out there. If you start to be able to feel it again, you will have to go back into your healthcare provider, because that's a good thing. Hopefully it means that you're getting better at that point. Yeah. So in 2017, we are going to be expanding our focus into aging care as our salespeople begin targeting nursing homes and assisted living facilities. And then, as we mentioned earlier, in 2018, we're going to be opening up distribution through pharmacies to begin ramping up sales to prepare for our 2020 exit via acquisition. So we've established these timelines by using many of our existing partnerships. For example, we've been talking with Dr. Talper, the head neurosurgeon for Norton Healthcare, which is a leading stroke center in our area. Upon FDA approval, Dr. Talper has agreed to promote TheraBracelet to his patients upon day one after having a stroke. But the real golden egg for us right now is Fraser Rehab, who has over 80,000 patients, inpatient and outpatient. Just last week, we were working with Dr. Steve Williams, who is helping us set up large-scale testing for TheraBracelet as soon as we have our V3 completed. Now, yes, sir.
What are your plans for evolving the product as it goes on? The technology is new, how are the ways you can enhance it, improve it over time? Do you have an R&D budget here, and how will you continue to improve it?
Absolutely. So one of the easiest things that we can do is that we are setting up V3 so that it can eventually integrate with an app. Matthew has very in-depth experience with software development. He is the VP of software development at his company right now. So we are setting up so that can later be integrated. We also are going to have the enhancement by being able to go into the ankle as well. And then finally, this can be integrated with sports tracking devices, kind of like the Fitbit or the Jawbone right now. We believe this technology can go into that. So there are expansion ideas out there for this.
But John's point about the budget, where would I see that in terms of being able to innovate the product?
I believe that we have a line for R&D on there.
Yeah, ongoing research and development for our final device is built out for version 3 here in 2014 to finish that device. And ongoing, it is basically something that will be done, but budgeting wise, we have a budget right now to get to our final completion of version 3.
Right. Right. So the really encouraging thing about all of this is that in order for TheraBracelet to succeed, we only have to penetrate our overall target market at a rate of less than 0.25% by 2020. Now, even in 2016, our 8 sales representatives will only be tasked with selling just over 1,000 TheraBracelet devices apiece. This means that they can sell just 100 devices through 10 large healthcare facilities. They'll be able to meet their sales goals for the year. This doesn't even take into account the millions of other people TheraBracelet has the potential to help. For example, there are 6.5 million Americans who are living with diabetic neuropathy that are completely outside of our target market right now. There are also millions of other individuals suffering from neuropathies, trauma like car accidents or autoimmune diseases like lupus. And as I said earlier, we do believe that TheraBracelet has the ability to be marketed as a sports enhancement device for anyone who has passed the age of peak physical performance.
How are we defining success?
How are we defining success? In our market penetration in the stroke arena.
And what percentage?
It is less than 0.25%.
So that means it was a large percentage of the market, you know, that you have penetrated.
Right, that is correct. We do not believe that we have to have that market penetration in order for us to be successful. Right now, we're going to look at our competitors in a moment. They are penetrating the market at a rate even lower than we are because they're so much more expensive, and they're extremely successful right now. So,
So again, you know, what are the hurdles that you feel, you know, that are inhibiting you from getting, you know, greater success, greater penetration?
right, so we may be conservative in some of our estimates, but we would rather be conservative in those than say that we're going to penetrate the market at a rate of 5% when we're only going to penetrate at a rate of 4%.
Adoption, is it money?
Exactly right. I think to add to it, I think anytime medical device, and we're about to talk a lot about the advising we've gotten from medical device sales, it takes time to enter those. It takes validation. We want to talk to promotional products that these doctors will take and try in the physical therapy, and then once that patient realizes there is benefit, that's when that door starts rolling. But just because, you know, Jim here at physical therapy likes it doesn't mean we walk across the street to the next one. The same process begins. So I think what you're looking at is an opportunity to get buy-in regionally as it will grow. And that's why it's so important at Fraser Rehab, where just right there, it could almost make our first year in one place that, you know, we'll do our testing and sell it.
But your plan, the vision that this product, you know, provides profound benefit, you know, to stroke victims,
Right.
be able to regain quality, you know, of life, you know, that they didn't have before. And and you're also presenting sales price that is affordable.
Right. Well,
Magnitude lower than, you know, your competition.
Right.
And so, I mean,
we don't have the sales force that a large medical device company is going to have. So the adoption rates for us are going to be slower because first year we only have 8 salespeople out there. We're only targeting 10,500 devices. And we are going to need the adoption rates, and we do need to show doctors that this does work, and it does. But they're going to want to be able to see that.
And the thing this also highlights a very important thing for TheraBracelet, right? That once market validation, the final device is there, we are a very strong acquisition target for a company that already has distribution channels and can double up their revenue quickly. So I think that's more what you're highlighting is what a strong acquisition target will be.
How much protection does your patent provide? If this is successful, and others realize that they can stimulate the same portion of the brain using related technology.
And so
How much protection do you really think you have?
Our patent
Because what
does.
success you're going to get.
Exactly. Our patent covers sub-threshold vibrations, which is the core of the technology for the entire hand and wrist area. So nobody else can use this type of technology on the hand, on the wrist, or on the arm in order to get these results.
They can use super threshold vibrations. They cannot use the theory of stochastic resonance, which is what we're using. So you cannot. Nobody can put vibrations that you can't feel under the wrist and market this.
And most of our competitors actually use super threshold vibrations if you want to discuss that.
Yeah.
so what they were, just on IP again then, are these just US, you know, patents?
Currently, it's just in the
And
United
are there
States.
going to be, PCT or foreign?
That's something that we're ongoing discussions right now with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So that's something that we would ideally like to begin doing in the next couple of months.
And then one of the things you don't address is actually the market beyond, you know, the United States.
Right, and we're planning to focus on the United States, and we believe that our acquire will take it further than that. And once again, because it has so many applications outside the U.S., that makes us a strong acquisition target. So,
Do you have any contingency plans for what you mentioned about getting other corporations that would have further access to distribution, et cetera, et cetera? How would you go about chasing that down as an alternative? Because it seems like
I'm going to cover that in depth in just a minute.
so because physical therapy and medication are going to work in conjunction with TheraBracelet, we do not believe that these treatment options are going to pose a competitive threat to our device. Instead, TheraBracelet will be directly competing with the Myomo, the Bioness, and the BioMove. Now, the Bioness is TheraBracelet's closest competitor feature by feature, but it costs about $8,000. While all of these devices claim to have neuropathic benefits for patients, they're all very bulky and be very uncomfortable to wear, especially for an entire day. In addition to this, it's important to note that all 3 of these competitors are advising our team on some level, which Nick is going to talk about in a few moments. But right now, today, there is no solution on the market that is capable of providing a portable, all-day wearable device that delivers immediate results without any inhibition to the hands or the arms. We believe TheraBracelet has a significant competitive advantage over these other products. TheraBracelet restores agility and independence. It increases quality of life with no lifestyle disruptions, but it costs thousands of dollars less than the next leading competitor. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nick Phelps, our CFO, who's going to walk us through our management team.
It's important to understand the team that's gotten this far. Matt Raggard is our CEO. He's currently Vice President at Bluegrass Net in Louisville. He has over 8 years of management experience, studies in cellular physiology, and he will be, as I say, I tell him, he's my rock star. I call him every day. After getting that FDA done, I kind of, can't believe it. He led that process with our chief engineer. It was a truly unbelievable accomplishment. Leah Enders, we did not know a year ago. I think that's just something that needs to be highlighted. This technology, we went up and drove up to Milwaukee and met our chief scientific officer last July. Got the option in August. And so just 9 months, TheraBracelet's come this far. Not today, our chief engineer, who has equity in our company, Alex Curry, he's a regulatory patent agent. He's already commercialized one medical device, which he did the FDA on and worked very closely with Matt Raggard. Casey Newts, our COO, she works at Strategic Communications. She writes governmental IT contracts for that Inc. 500 company, which she and Matt, to be very clear, will go full-time with TheraBracelet after our graduation at Met. And with that importance, her grant writing capabilities are very strong. And you can't tell, I'm Nick, I'm kind of our sales guy, fundraiser. And at the end of the day, one thing you will recognize, and we'll talk about in a second, there's not a lot of medical device sales. So we found ways to comfort that. We'll talk about it in a moment. Our advisory board goes far beyond this PowerPoint slide, but we have found folks across regulatory matters, medical device commercialization, medical device sales, testing. We are very excited with the support we've had, and probably most excited about 3 of our competitors. Now, one thing I do have extensive background in, might not be medical device, but it is opening doors and building relationships. And so what I found very important was to go to our competitors and find out what it would take for them to acquire us, because that's what investors want to know. And so I picked up the phone and called Bioness and called Zynex Medical, and just recently she talked about Dr. Williams at Fraser Rehab. Well, he's on the scientific advisory board at Miami. So we have our hands in each one. Tom at Bioness and Robert Bird at Zynex, we've met, we've sat with. When we won the Georgia Bowl a couple months ago, we had dinner in Atlanta with Tom at Bioness, and he and Robert have helped us basically understand the distribution. We have learned from the ones already doing it. Currently, we've provided them a lot of information. I actually talked to Tom yesterday, and what they're doing is setting standards for what an acquisition interest would look like in 2 different levels. One would be once the device is completed, FDA, and it works, we have that validation. And the second would be once we have sales. Now for us, it's going to be more profitable and to our investors if we can make some sales and then acquire. But these have been very strong relationships that we will continue to build. The price point's very straightforward, $299. Now, those suppliers I just told you about, why are they so interested? Because our device goes in conjunction with the ones they're already selling. It can be used at the same time. And while they're selling their very expensive device, they can just slide in that $299 TheraBracelet right there along. Now, first look approval, if there is someone that needs financing, because many people we might sell to live check to check. If you talk about disability or Social Security, there is a financing option at $355 if they can do that over a year or 2. And then our cost of goods sold has been spec'd out, and it's a little less than $30, giving us a nice profit on each device. We'll recognize revenues of over $3 million in our first year. This will grow as we penetrate our listed markets to over $26 million in 2020. Now to get here, we believe we need 2 rounds of financing to get to this 2020 exit. The first would be this year. $500,000 would allow us to execute the full exclusive license with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. We believe, generally, it's all negotiable, but it'd be around $50,000. To do the initial hiring for our launch, as Matt and Casey go full-time, to complete the FDA, and most importantly, the engineering of our final product. Series A of $1.85 million in 2015 will allow us to ramp up the hiring and aggressively penetrate our markets until we exit, and plan for 2020, which will use the 9-time EBIT evaluation for over $86 million. Now, this provides a 74% IRR, 72%, and 34 times cash on cash for our seed round. And our Series A, a 60% IRR and 13 times cash on cash. As I mentioned, our potential acquirers, this could be 2017 or 16. But with how we've built it out and building our company through sales, this is what we have on target. There's also the opportunity like a Nike Fitbit. They already have a technology that's very similar. This can be built into their already existing device. TheraBracelet, as you heard, we have a team, we have a path, we have the IP. This year we'll test it and we'll validate our final device. We know it's a very simple device, but the value to our investors and the impact on millions of lives is simply not hard to grow. Thank you.
2 questions. You're selling, you didn't talk about your selling expenses, and there probably are some relative to, what you're looking at as far as margins, and margins are wonderful, but, I find that usually it takes a little money to get things moving and.
Absolutely, and that was just our gross top
So what do
line
you think
profit
that's
margin. Right, I think that Nick can pull up a little bit more about that, but basically, we have it built in for our promotional devices are built into our costs there. And then we also have marketing and promotional expenses built in. I believe our promotional expenses are built in at $50,000 a year. Our marketing ramps up each year, but it's around $500,000 and it ramps up past $1 million.
And for each sales rep, we do have built-in travel expenses, annually.
So what percentage of your selling prices is that going to run into?
It's, Matthew, you might be able to expand on this, but I think that's,
Well, are you talking about on a single device
Yeah.
or holistically?
Yeah, usually you want to look at it on, you basically get your selling expenses, and
right.
normally for this kind of a product, you can run fairly high from a
Right.
percentage standpoint. I was just wondering.
If we're maybe at about 10,500 units in year one, and our promotion is 50,000, we would say it's about $5 per unit based on the math. Right, but that would
That
just
seems
be,
pretty low.
that would just be for the promotional. That doesn't, of course, include the marketing that goes into that and doing
And our travel expenses, which are built in, I think, $3,000 a month per employee,
per sales.
per sales employee, yeah.
Second question is, on investors that you're targeting, what is your target for investors? I mean, are you targeting angels, are you targeting strategic investors? This is an interesting play, and I'm just thinking about, where are you focusing to
Sure.
get your
I would say first,
tranche?
I would say first, we're probably targeting angels.
We are, and especially in Louisville, there's a big angel community in Louisville, and we have good relationships with several angels there who have invested in a couple other medical device technologies and startups similar to ourselves.
Okay, so you're thinking about people that actually know something about your industry.
Correct,
That
correct.
would be very helpful.
That was, when we selected technology, that was very important, that we're live and breathe, have relationships in an environment. I think that's one reason we moved so quickly, is to have a lot of support in our area.
And those individuals who are angels that we would look to will have the relationships with Fraser Medical. They'll have the relationships with the University of Louisville, so that we can do a Fraser U of L partnership. They'll have a relationship with Morton, for example. So that's really key to us.
Thank you.
How are you addressing emerging technology, brand new item, failure rates, how you service the product,
Right.
warranty, how is that factored into?
Absolutely.
Including what's the power source of this?
It's a battery right now, it's a regular, it's actually a 3.7 volt battery.
Okay.
So it's a little bit higher than the normal AA.
Right, but it
But we will hope to go down to like a watch battery.
Right. We've spec'd it out as a LiPo, so it's a lithium polymer battery right now for version 3. This is the current one for version 2, but for version 3 it's a lithium polymer. So it's something that could have a charge for 3 to 4 days. Ideally, someone would take it off at night, put it on their nightstand and charge it, just like you would do with a Fitbit, for example.
Amplify on the ideally, I mean, how are you thinking this through? How will it be recharged? I know it's still a prototype phase.
Sure.
Approaching
It has a charging port, so it utilizes a standard USB charging port. When we built it in, one of our main things for raw materials was finding raw materials that could be sourced from multiple providers so that we never got hung up for a situation where we were waiting on a raw material, a component from some individual spec. So we're using very standard components. One of those would be a standard USB charging cable. What's key about that standard USB charging cable, because of course it plugs into a wall, what's key about that though is that it could also plug into a cell phone. It could also plug into a computer. So that's where we are able to eventually move this towards maybe doing a pairing with an application. The second part to that, actually it's maybe the third part then, the third part to that USB is that during the QC phase, as this rolls off the line, we've already built in QC in the PCBA and assembly costs when we got the RFQ from Key Electronics. So they're building that in. We asked them about warranty, and they said, your device is only going to cost you $20 to $25, and we're not including packaging in that. The warranty could be a couple of months. Again, for FDA purposes, we're stating that the device will last over a year, but we could always, because the cost of goods is so small, we could always send them out another device.
Right, and because key manufacturing is FDA QSR compliant, like you said, we do have the QC built in, and they are guaranteeing our devices.
Yes, sir.
How are you handling inventory? It looks to me like you're doing one-on-one inventory. There's no, not carrying any inventory, there's no AR. So how are you
We're
accounting for that? Is that pumping up your ROI calculations?
We're sourcing our raw materials out a quarter before we'll actually need them, and then as soon as we get them in a monthly basis, Key Electronics allows us to store those raw materials on spot with them on their location in a secure facility. As soon as we get the raw materials, that next month we'll actually run to the production, and we're doing quarterly production. Now, we talked with Key, more than likely based upon our estimated annual volumes, which is how we got our costs from them. They'll probably do the entire run and produce that entire year for year 1 to 10,000 units and release it to us in quarters. So,
And they're going to carry that?
yes, we're going to carry that. So we'll be buying our raw materials cost up front. The way we put it into our financials is each quarter we'll pay for the raw materials, and each quarter we'll pay Key Electronics for that upcoming release of materials. More than
But they'll order the materials?
they'll order the materials for us. Correct, and they do all that on site, which is why it's so very important for us to have that relationship with them. Again, they're 10 minutes away from us, so we can walk over. We've toured their facilities, we've toured their plant, and they keep all their medical device equipment over in a very locked down, very secure area in their facility.
And these aren't just assumptions, these are terms that we have worked out with Keith.
Okay, so now you're a year and a half into it, you got some real volume. Now we're talking some real money in inventory. And you decide that you need, for whatever reason, to change the product in some way, shape, or form. So they're sitting on all of that material, some of them, they're all done. They're already, who eats that?
Well, that would likely be TheraBracelet, because they've produced all of them, but we've committed to an estimated annual volume for production purposes.
So you have a minimum threshold that you have to purchase from them. So even if you have to change it, you're the one that has to take it back and take that on
Correct.
through, you know.
But this is why we're doing the 500 to 1,000 units in 2015 to 16 to be able to test it to make sure that we're not going to have a component failure. In addition, Key Electronics has given us a spec sheet to say for each one of these individual components, say it's a resistor or a capacitor, for example, you need to buy an extra 3% or 4% so that we can keep it in inventory just in case we have some type of issue with it.
Okay, I would suggest you take a look at that.
Sure.
But how come no accounts receivable?
That was strategic. With first look approval, I mentioned earlier, our devices will be direct cash payments. So what we did with a very small amount that might need to finance the $300 is that we partner with them. They pay us immediately the $299, same exact cost. They take their profit and the financing is with them directly.
So your salespeople won't be able to say, hey, take 5 of them, keep them in stock, and if someone comes in, so they can't do that. It's got to be a cash deal. So they got to close it.
Directly
So
to the consumer.
that might be another way to kind of help us. The other thing I see is that you have consulting in the first year pre-launch, but then no consultants. So everything you're going to hire in-house, you're not going to use any consulting.
That's not entirely accurate.
Accounting would be a consulting thing, so we would have accounting, we'd have some HR for consulting, if you want to schedule salaries, we
I don't
can
see
look at that.
here. I see it was one time in 2015 and nothing in 16 through.
We put some of those fees into the schedule of salaries, so it ended up being lumped into the expenses directly. So, for example, for accounting staff, we're gonna do outsourcing on that. For human resources, we're gonna outsource on that as well, some additional sales support. So we will outsource on those items.
Okay, you might want to wait those out. And one more thing is, and then is that, you know, your numbers are pumped up because the investment in the early years is very small. You know, $1,250 for all of 2015 for office supplies. I mean, some pens cost that much. You might want to just kind of, you're going to have to do a lot of copies, a lot of things sending out. You know, those are the kind of things that, you know, put you over budget, you know, right away. You know, those little things.
Well, now, like those copies and things like that, that would fall into our promotional and marketing materials. You know, Matthew and I are the only full-time employees in 2014, and then we're only bringing on 2 more people. We already have computers. You know, if one breaks, then we can spend $500 on another computer, but we won't have large overhead expenses in our first year. It's just the 2 of us.
Okay,
Right. Thank you.
If this fundamental technology is effective and works, create a category into leveraging the technology, but to continue on that path of innovation and leveraging technology, how will you do that? Because the application can go a lot of different directions. And how will you guard against somebody coming in with a sports bracelet because modifying technology so it's sort of that? How do you continue on the path of innovation that's got to be this part?
So your last answer.
Sure. That's where our strategic partnerships are key. That's where the target for acquisition is immense. Because once we establish ourselves in the market, the competitors that we've talked about, which are really going to be our acquisition partners, they're going to look at TheraBracelet and say, we want this technology, we want this for ourselves. So they're going to be able to put the backing behind it and the experience behind it in order to protect against that.
And that's why it was so important to bring on Alex Curry, the chief engineer, who went in the device he commercialized was the first smart toothbrush that's connected to an app. It's called Bean Brush. It supported a company in Louisville. But that's why it was so important to bring someone on who's not only an engineer and inventor and someone who just in about 3 weeks is announcing his next device, but we now have an equity member who is an entrepreneur and a proven medical device entrepreneur.
And a registered patent agent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.